in his list as well. But yeah, here we go. We're about to start our round 7 of our feature match in Warsaw Regionals.
Yeah, let's see who's actually going first, and if they can have this very strong start with the with multiple stubbles on their bench. Yeah, we talked about the decks. Irida, one supporter we haven't talked about too much yet, but it's a very set standard supporter in the Inteleon. Palika Alliance, it's actually a very strong deck going into all these recent tournaments. It's been a little bit overshadowed by like the Curum version that we haven't featured on stream yet, I believe.
We did get a chance to see Benji Fan play it.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, which was great. We had the chance to showcase that because that was a deck that became very popular in recent times since the release of Curum VMAX as well. But then using the Palkia more as a sort of support Pokemon, using that VStar ability, the Star Portal, to power up his attackers as well. But this one is the core focus around that subspace swell attack of the Palkia V-Star, Orange Form Palkia V-Star. But then, of course, you know, it needs its engine, and that engine is the Shady Dealings. Both players playing the currently just the 60 HP ones. We've seen a few lists start to consider the 70 HP ones without the keep calling to kind of get out of range of things like Sableye. But both these players going for the tried and tested.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see that while typically you're opting for more consistency when it comes to cards like Battle VIP Pass, so they have 3 and 4 copies, the Inteleon line just allows you to have, when it comes to supporters and items in general, to just have more freedom in your one-offs because you have easier access to all these cards. Yeah,
definitely. And I guess, you know, we've seen a little bit of a cycle where some players in these lists play maybe one Battle VIP Pass in some of the Inteleon lists because you have access to things like the Irida. If you go second, you can just Irida for it straight away, which is fantastic. But yeah, straight away here, what we see from Magnus's side, you know, straight with that Battle VIP Pass, getting a Sobble and a Greninja down, has that Palkia V in the active spot, has a Capacious Bucket all there already. All those combo pieces are already coming together for him. Just double checking his prizes, of course. We'll quickly get that back to you guys back at home as well, but just grabbing those 2 water energies out of his deck and just having a quick look. Nothing too bad for either player again. That big charm is prized. Maybe trying to find a way to help, you know, keep himself out of range from a return attack.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love the engine of using Radiant Greninja's ability to start discarding energies to then make use of that V-Star power from Palkia. So there's 1 energy attached, 1 in the discard. Great start, 2 Sobbles. Like Magnus couldn't really ask for more.
No, it's definitely a great start. We've seen from our last round where Magnus Cannon was only really able to get 1 Sobble down, going first each time. Demetris has started that Zigzagoon. I guess having an opportunity to just have to go second, you know, it gives him the chance to play the supporter and all of that. But right now, we'd be quite happy to potentially give up a Zigzagoon over anything else. Does very quickly go down with a Capacious Bucket as well, just double checking his own prizes. As mentioned, Demetris has played Palkia Intel for a bit of time now, but so has Magnus, both players actually. I think Magnus actually done really well in recent tournaments at the same time. Of course, putting himself in that top 16 contention.
Yeah. One question I would have to you is, like, in the Inteleon Palkia mirror, like, obviously Palkia does more damage the more benched Pokemon you have and your opponent. So while you want to limit the damage your opponent is doing to you by maybe reducing the benched Pokemon, you also want to maximize your own damage. So I think it's like really hard to maybe balance between doing the most damage yourself but preventing opposing knockouts.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right on that, and it's one of those tricky things that a lot of top players have to try and navigate around, and so that's why it'll be really interesting to see Demetris go, or how he acts and how he goes with his turn right now, because obviously he's just grabbed that Greninja and the Irida, Greninja and the Battle VIP Pass from the Irida, sorry, so has the option to do so. Just kind of seeing if he can maybe not have to necessarily use the Battle VIP Pass, if he can just get like a couple of cards that would help him navigate his turn without getting all of his bench Pokemon down, but now opting to choose to do so after already drawing 4 cards from concealed card.
It's actually a very interesting choice because intuitively I would have said use a Battle VIP Pass, you need a Palkia and a Sobble anyway, and then you have better odds of drawing other cards with your Greninja's ability, basically.
Yeah, it's one of those things where sometimes if you're able to conceal cards into a Pokemon already, you maybe don't have to choose it as your target for Battle VIP Pass. You've got a few options like that. You know, unfortunately, this scenario where Demetris doesn't want to take out a Palkia V because maybe he wants to draw into one as well, because then he could just battle VIP pass for the second one. You know, leaving the maximum available in his deck means that he can save that extra space and extra slot, and it increases his percentages to try and get that out.
That's a very good point, considering that you might want to fill up your bench. But I see the trade-off. It's really interesting as well, seeing the scoop up net combo there, discarding 1 energy, then taking up your Greninja, playing it down again, which gives you access to the ability again, so you get like a lot of energies early on into your discard pile. I think that was in Hisuian, Heavy Ball, looking at the prize cards, potentially getting a Pokemon out of your prize as well. There's actually a Sobble, a basic Pokemon that he can exchange for the Hisuian Heavy Ball and put it back into the prizes. So he has another Sobble. There would be 3 Sobbles. It's great, because if you get knocked out 1 or 2, you still have access to the other ones. So it's good having like multiples, I suppose. But then again, we're talking about like damage on the Palkia from both sides, basically. So the trade-off, because of like focusing on how much damage you do and how much damage you get, is key to victory, I suppose.
Yeah, so this is kind of also a weird scenario as well, that you sometimes do see the Greninja come out as an attacker as well. We've already seen the value that you mentioned that it gets from being able to conceal cards, scoop up, in the effect that you may only use this ability once, but benching it from your hand again, it could be a brand new one, which is why it allows you to use it again. But its attack, Moonlight Shuriken, is also fantastic as well. Demetris wasn't able to get a mana feed down, so there may be an opportunity here for Magnus to try and use Greninja as an attack to deal 90 damage to 2 Pokemon. Demetris has 2 Pokemon under 90 HP right now with that Zigzagoon and that 1 Sobble, so it looks like a good target to do so. Of course, Greninja being able to be powered up by that VStar Star Portal ability that the Palkia VStar has as well. So lots of options here. Both players probably eyeing up that kind of opportunity, because even with Drizzles, they have only 90 HP. So it'll be interesting to see how Magnus navigates this going forward. He has Shading Demons now for the 2nd time, getting another Capacious Bucket. More energies into the hand, into the discard, just kind of getting himself ready for this. Is really good to see. You know, as you're beginning to get cards out of the deck, you're thinning, you're getting all the key pieces for later as well. Yeah, it's so far so good. From
it's interesting that he puts down a 2nd Palkia, maybe getting it ready to attack. You talked about attacking with the Raiding Greninja. Bench is full at this point now. Okay, so maybe he's attacking with the Palkia, indeed. But alternatively, you would have to find an option to switch his Palkia from the active position, and then attach 2 energies to the Greninja and take 2 knockouts, and also leaving up your Greninja up front, so it's not a double prizer, which could potentially lose you 2 prizes. But instead,
he goes for the cross switcher on the Palkia V. So I guess this is one of the other main things about having now gone for the full bench activity, and Demetris only having 1 Palkia V. So instantly scooping, knowing sort of he's in that situation where he will be having to kind of go to the next game because, you know, with
too much for him.
Yeah, completely understand. And as I mentioned, there's quite a few different sort of nuances in terms of how you would have to try and navigate this mirror matchup. So it'll be interesting to see how Demetris handles it now. Both players opening, Demetris starting, of course, as we expect. A quick look at the prizes. Demetris doesn't have access to 2 of the cross switches in his list. Just a bench of the Manaphy and passes. His hand isn't super strong. I did see an Evo Incense, but no Sobbles, no Battle VIP pass, despite playing the full 4, although 1 is prize. And Magnus, of course, just instantly opening there with that VIP pass.
Absolutely, getting access to 2 more basic Pokemon on the bench, and on top of that, you can use Keep Calling to get even more Sobble down the line as well. So maybe picking Greninja and a Palkia here, and then attacking with Keep Calling to get your bench filled, and then you're very much set up for the next turn. So that's one option to consider. But of course, Magnus is taking the time, go for his deck, make sure like checking what is prized, maybe seeing like that he has 1 Sobble, 1 Drizzile prized, but that's exactly what's happening. There's a Raiding Greninja and the Palkia, and maybe if he has the energy in hand, he might first discard it with Raiding Greninja, we don't know, but eventually he might use Keep Calling as well, fill up the bench with more Sobbles and go from there.
Yeah, it's definitely such a great little card. You know, it's been around for some time. It's fitted in some other decks. You know, back in the day it was the Rapid Strike Malamar list where you're using a lot of the Sobbles, and quite happy to go the 1 prizer route. now sort of being such a great utility card to kind of just keep Shady Dealings when it evolves up into the Drizzle, Shady Dealings even more when it evolves again into the Inteleon. And as you see, with all these kind of comboed lists and decks, Magnus playing down that Irida now, he's now able to grab an additional water Pokemon, an additional item card to really start just setting up, and he's eyeing up a Sobble, eyeing up a Battle VIP pass. I think maybe he's just having a quick check of his cards. Oh yeah, he's gone straight for Battle VIP pass alongside a Palkia V, and then using that Battle VIP pass for the Manaphy and Sobble.
In that case, you don't even need to keep calling anymore because you have access to all the Pokemon that you need. So maybe if you have another energy in hand, you can attach it to Palkia to have that ready for next turn. So it's great maneuvering through his deck of Magnus here, abusing the first poor turn from Demetris here, really having to play the Manaphy down, preventing damage on the bench, however not dealing more than that. No energy attachment, but that's not too bad for Magnus. We see an Irida, so we will see a water Pokemon and an item coming out for Demetris as well. Let's see, he's choosing that. That's actually a great combination as well. Use that Radiant Greninja and end that up with the Capacious Bucket, get 2 more water energies, discard one of them, get 2 more cards from your deck. So you actually draw quite a few cards here right away.
Yeah, definitely. So we're starting to see maybe Demi hoping to try and put himself back into the game. He does have the Palkia VStar in hand already. Of course, he won't be able to attack without using Star Portal or potentially using a Melanie that he plays also in his list as well. I think it might be just a 1 copy. But doesn't have access to that Shady Dealings because he wasn't able to get a Sobble down. But we'll see what this concealed cards is able to draw into. Does get a Sobble and a Drizzle together, which obviously is are great cards, but right now probably needed a little bit more just from that. Those only 2 cards, so there's just the Star Portal just for that one
energy. That's very interesting to see, actually. Having the second in hand, attaching it to be able to attack here, but that's not what you want to see, right? Using a V-Star to attach 1 single energy, that just shows how far behind you are in the game. And being down 1 game already here in this set, Demetris has to make sure that he uses all his options.
Yeah, and that's why he's maybe having to go for that play, having to try and be a bit more aggressive with his actions. Just to get that knockout, because everyone wants to get the full value, right? You want to have the 3 water energies in the discard pile to kind of start powering up multiple attackers. But Demetris unfortunately had a really slow turn 1 despite going first. As I mentioned, that's an example of a Palkia hand that you can get sometimes with this deck. Once it navigates through turn 1 and turn 2, you have so many options to yourself. But he does take the first prize. Does keep his bench relatively small. It's only 3 as well, so a return knockout might be quite difficult right now, if possible at all. So it'll be interesting to see again how Magnus navigates this round. So he opens with an Irida.
Yeah, let's see what the Irida gets him. That's okay. There's the Palkia V-Star, the Capacious Bucket, another 2 water energies, being able to discard 1 with concealed cards as well. And I think there was at least 1 energy from last turn, getting into the second one, maybe finding a way with the Scoop Up Net to discard a 3rd one and then taking full advantage of that V-Star power from Palkia to get more energies into play. But yeah, we talked about the reverse KO. That's probably not possible, but at the same time, getting a 2-hit knockout on that V-Star should also not be the worst thing.
No, not at all, especially when Demetris right now doesn't have an extra attack or only really has 1 Sobble. Could be an option to maybe target down that Sobble just to cause Demetris to really be really slow with his setup as well. Both players having Manaphy down, both players only having the 1 Sobble down actually, now that Demi has been able to knock out that active Sobble. We see both the Palkia Vs get evolved up to their origin form Palkia V-Star counterparts, and here comes the first Shady Dealings of Game 2. Yeah,
let's see which item which trainer cards he gets out of his deck this time. But I think maybe a Scoop Up Net could be great, maybe a Capacious Bucket that he's grabbing with 2 energies along would be great. If he has a way to discard those maybe, does he have any balls discarding? Actually not in this deck, no, but if he finds another way, except for concealed cards, to discard more energies, and then gets the full potential 3 energies, 2 on the active, 1 on the bench, so he always has an attacker ready, while on the other side we talked about Demetris only has 1 attack at the moment. There's actually the quick wall to discard the energy. So we have all pieces that we need. Grabbing another Sobble, having that ready for next turn as well. And that's the one thing that Demetris is missing at the moment. He doesn't have a second attacker ready. He already uses VStar power, so it's harder to set up his Pokemon. Yes, he has that one-off Melanie that helps him set up another Pokemon, but it's not even it's no Palkia in play, so it can't evolve. So it's quite hard for Demetris to once this Pokemon is knocked out to come back into the game. However, because it's not a one-hit knockout, Demetris has one more turn to set it up.
Yeah, and that's the key thing for Demi right now. Just being able to tank a hit because of the way he's been able to resource his bench, maybe through his just unfortunately just from his hand draws himself, but it still keeps him in the game currently. He'll look to try and set up another Palkia V on the bench as soon as possible. He'll also be looking to try and get another Sobble down as soon as possible because as mentioned, both players are only working with one Sobble at the moment, and there's the attack. There's a subspace as well. That's 60 plus 20 for each of the bench Pokemon on both
200
sides.
in total. Not quite enough to pick up the knockout, but having 200 HP is great because it's down to 80 HP. So if he sets up a Greninja, for example, a 90 would take the knockout there. So you could potentially attack with the Greninja, take out the Palkia V-Star and one bench Pokemon, except there's a mana fee to stop at least the damage on the bench.
Yeah, but it does open up a few options. You could still, if you had to attack with Greninja, it's probably not the most efficient, but maybe you can also attack with Inteleon as well, dealing using Aqua Bullet or to deal 120 damage, or even quick shooting 70 and then plus 20 for your quick shooting ability is able to help also push over the limits as well. So a few different extra ways and extra routes to try and take this knockout. Demetris is able to use I believe Shading Dealings for a quick ball, knowing that he's going to need to get another attacker out as soon as possible, sort of identifying that as key as an aspect. One of the few worrying things in this scenario is because he's only able to get a Palkia V on the bench this time, a play for Magnus potentially could be targeting that Palkia V exactly because he can't evolve it up straight away.
Absolutely. If he has the Gust option, maybe boss in his deck, I see one copy here. If he gets access to that, bossing up that one Palkia on the bench, taking it out by benching one more Pokemon, which gets you up to 220 damage, would knock that out and leave you back with your one damaged V-Star in the active, or like in the game, basically. So that's one option to keep in mind. We're not quite sure what Magnus's hand looks like, but that's definitely a big threat coming from Magnus there.
Yeah, definitely. And alongside that boss as well, they typically don't play many because they have that utility to just grab cross switches when they want through the Shady Dealings, through the Iridas, through all of those combo searching pieces, which is fantastic for the deck. And that's why we're starting to showcase and see how it's working. And Demi is actually targeting down the Drizzle, identifying what I sort of mentioned before, that Magnus could have tried to maybe consider going for the Sobble, really slowing down the other side of the board. Demi's here, knowing he's already taken one prize, knowing he's still got to go through one single prizer anyway, taking the KO on the Sobble here, I think is a really smart play. Being able to now hopefully have a fresh Palkia on the next turn because he's also put that Big Charm on.
Yeah, the Big Charm actually prevents the knockout as well. Maximum dealing of 220 wouldn't be enough any longer. But it's interesting that he saw such a big threat in the Drizzle, because knowing that by evolving it, you get access to 2 item cards, the 2 trainer cards. So like taking that threat out of the game, basically. And as you said, going through the prize mapping, he needed 5 prizes anyway, so taking that out now while it's evolved on the field gives him more flexibility and helps combat Magnus's potential of going wild in this turn right now.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this kind of matchup here between 2 really top players. Like we've said before, both players are currently in top 16, with Demi actually in contention for a travel award in the top 4 as well, and we do just see Magnus there taking the easy knockout on that Palkia V-Star, that damaged Palkia V-Star, leveling up the game to 4-4. Magnus still in a slightly stronger position, doesn't have access to Shady Dealings or sort of that kind of combo at the moment, but has 2 Palkia V-Stars on the board ready to go, one with a Big Charm as well, so both needing to be 2-hit KO'd at any stage. So Demi there playing Capacious Bucket and now an Evo Incense. Just grabbing that is that the Shady Dealings? Yeah, it is.
That looks like a Shady Dealings.
That's the Shining Fates Shady Dealings Inteleon, which looks fantastic. Of course, a very shiny version in Demetris' deck there.
Yeah, and beyond just evolving your active Palkia, you get access to 2 item cards, which again will help you to find the evolution, and but on top of that, maybe helps you to find a second Pokemon, a second attacker as well. We see the Choice Belt. Maybe that's an option to deal more damage, but it's going to come down to 2-hit knockouts anyway, so I don't think that will play a massive role. And there's the double item grab here. Let's see who he's grabbing. I assume, Scoop Up Net would make sense, and maybe a way to evolve your active Pokemon.
Oh, he's considering the Marnie play here, which is very interesting. Already had the Palkia VStar in hand. Of course, does have the big charm, doing that mirror match in the active spot against Magnus right now, but also has the big charm. Just considering their options there, there's a Scoop Up to pick up the Inteleon. The Sobble comes straight back down, and now we see the Marnie. So again, still a little bit precarious that we don't see another Palkia V. Not too sure, maybe just kind of maybe digging for it at the moment, or if that's even available. It's not prized right now, but it'll be interesting to see. There's another Sobble, which is fantastic for Demi. And now it's just kind of seeing
cross switch and a better VIP pass. So no second attacker here. But again, like we're talking about 2-hit knockouts, so he still has another turn to set that up next time. The only good thing would be having it in play, being able to evolve soon. But the energy attachment for this turn went to the active anyway. So it's not the end of the world. Having Sobbles in play gives you more options next turn. It's quite interesting how Greninja and Manaphy on the bench, they're basically like cancelling each other out.
Yeah.
So you don't really have a threat of either of those. But concealed cards, great option to draw more cards going into this game. And considering Magnus has 2 Palkias set up, I suppose he can afford to discard more energies.
Yeah, and so that's just, I believe, the 200 damage. Is 200 damage right now? 60 plus 80 on Demi's side, and then 60 again on Magnus. So, 200 damage on Magnus's active Palkia V-Star right now. So, as I mentioned, I thought Magnus might be in a better position because he has double, which is why he's now retreating, paying the retreat cost to go into the fresh one. But Demetris is the one who's been able to attack first. So, applying that damage, applying that pressure onto Magnus' side, but there's an instant return there of 200 using a fresh Palkia V-Star. So Demi here really needs to find a way of getting another Palkia V if possible. He does only play the free line in comparison to what we've seen from Magnus Pederden in this round, and Magnus Callan in the last round, where he was able to use Palkia V as an attacker as well to take the game. So really interesting to see how Demi's going to be able to
we'll get another
this.
look into the deck. We'll probably pick up a Drizzle, evolve that, get access to more cards. Looking if I see another Palkia, there's another Palkia that he can set up as well. But yeah, the question is, does he have access to Gust maybe? A double cross switcher, maybe a boss here, pick up the damaged Palkia to not lose on the prize trade. Picking up 2 prizes would be great here, because otherwise it sets you off too much. If Magnus takes the knockout and has 2 Palkias ready, that's really hard for Demetris to come back from that.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how Demi plays this one out. So if he doesn't have access to another Palkia, one of the things he might have to go down the route of is actually starting to use an Inteleon as an attacker. Because with Aqua Bullet dealing 120, hopefully that should be enough. Yes, of course, with the 200 plus 120, it's 320 in total. So you'll be able to take the knockout on the benched Palkia V-Star there as well. If he's able to put damage on the active Palkia V-Star, another 200, that leaves it with 80. That means that he could potentially then use the quick shooting Inteleon to try and take that one out as his way of sort of backup attackers. As we're talking about that, doesn't even matter. He does have another Palkia in the deck, which is why I was a little bit surprised he hadn't tried to find a way to get it down sooner than previous. But here we go. Demetri does use the double cross switches.
And has a Scoop Up Net ready to pick up that Drizzle right away and bring his Pokemon back in. Draw 2 prizes by knocking out, going down to 2 prizes. But it's quite... It's not quite over yet. Like there's quite a difficult path for Demetris to take the last 2 prizes, because there will be a 2-hit knockout on the opposing Palkia V-Star. He could take out both of the single prizers. However, he only has 1 boss left, and his cross switches are priced. So it's not as easy to get the last remaining 2 prizes. But he keeps himself alive, keeps himself in the game here. Is thinning out his deck even further. Maybe attaching 1 energy to the bench Palkia. Get that ready as well. And then it's a question, one goes down for concealed cards, drawing even more cards, bringing your card count or your deck count even further down. There's the choice belt and the energy going to the benched Pokemon. We talked about a play earlier where with a Gust you could also target the benched Palkia. That could be a play here as well, of course.
Yeah, so it's kind of a very interesting situation here for Magnus, because in effect, if he can find a way to increase his bench and hit that 220, he could take the knockout on the bench, Palkia V. Potentially also keeping himself out of range is what he's got to try and figure out, because obviously now he's lost access to the big charm. But that does mean it's a little bit easier in terms of the navigation of what he's looking to try and do, because he's then just facing a damaged Palkia VStar in the active spot. So again, really interesting. There's a level ball from Magnus, having just quickly checked on his resources throughout in his discard pile. It'll be really interesting to see, because Demi's still got to try and find a way of evolving that Palkia V on the bench. If Magnus does go for the knockout on that one, his Palkia V-Star will be taking the first hit. But then Demi can't... Oh, there's a second.
Another big charm.
Something that hasn't been picked up on our list, but it's absolutely fine. There you go. Second big charm actually coming to fruition there, which is great for Magnus. And it just means that it's a great tech card, keeping himself out of range, which is fantastic to see. But this scenario now, what we're going to potentially be seeing is a Palkia V-Star come down from Demi's side of the board and be the first one to take an attack.
Yep.
Which could be
if he
vital.
gets access to his last remaining V-Star, absolutely. Yeah, so let's see how this turn plays out. We have the Drizzle active at the moment. We had level balls to thin out the deck. I think a Zigzagoon in his hand that probably won't help him too much here. So let's see how this turn is played out. Demetris seems to be thinking about a potential scoop up net play. You can see he's like imitating the play, so he's in his head going through the options he has, figuring out what the best path to victory is here. And yeah, we see another energy attachment. So what we're currently missing is that Palkia V-Star. However, with the scoop up net, if you're able to evolve the bench Sobble, get another item, and maybe therefore get your evolution incense or any other way to evolve your Palkia V-Star, that would be a great way. Also gets the Drizzle out of the active position, which makes it easier for the Palkia to come in and attack.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, just re-picking up back on going through the list again, we see Demi with the Roxanne option there whilst playing through his deck. He is playing it, so both players now be shuffling up. Demi will draw 6 cards, and his opponent Magnus will only be drawing 2, having it being activated now that both players are actually under 3 cards themselves. So Demi's still playing to stay in this series. Of course, currently lost game 1. So it'll be really interesting to see if he's able to navigate around this at all. Does have that Inteleon in the not Inteleon in the active, Drizzle in the active, but we'll need to try and find a way to get that V-Star as soon as possible.
It's interesting, if I saw that correctly, he did initially have the scoop up net, but decided to maybe keep the Drizzle so he can evolve it into an Inteleon and get more benefits out of it, and he draw into that V-Star, which is very convenient here. He gets to check his prize one more time. Again, this is towards the end of round 7, so yes, you had access to your deck quite often, and you already draw 4 prizes, but just checking one more time, hey, what is actually priced again? Making sure that you're not missing any information, any pieces. So evolving here into Inteleon gives you access to more cards, such as the scoop up net that allows you to get your Palkia active and attack, and we talked about this. It's going to be a 2-hit knockout anyway, and if Demetris is the first one to attack and get damage onto that Palkia, he's in a commanding position to take out this game.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think I've already saw in Demi's hand as well the Shining Fates Inteleon again. So he does have access to Shady Dealings for the double trainer card pickup. So again, hoping to try and pick up the scoop up net to try and get it out of the active position. Just going through those pieces again. There you go. He's just eyeing it up, of course. Does also play both players also play the Echoing Horn to try and help ramp up the damage. But at this stage, because it is a 2-hit knockout, a little bit less needed right now, unless you find a way of bursting through and just also gusting up what you're Echoing Horning.
That would be great, like getting a Palkia up basically from the discard pile and gusting that up for a straight knockout would be a straight clear path to victory here for Demetris. So yeah, let's see. There's Scoop up net end.
Yeah,
He seems to be quite unsure yet. He doesn't want to play the cards yet. But there's absolutely a scoop up net that will have to come for him to be able to attack.
Looks like an Irida that was behind it, but Demi can't use the cross switcher because he's only been able to pull one off the prizes. So there's still one more remaining if that play was available to him. But that does mean Magnus has it available for him when it passes back over, if there is an attack here from Demetris as well. So again, very back and forth. Just very quickly touch on, we didn't quite notice the second big charm, and we thought it was a rare candy from Magnus Pedersen's list, but we were slightly incorrect on that, so I do apologize. There is, of course, that second big charm that we've seen hit the field already going forward. And there's a subspace swell. Demi's keeping his bench really low as well. Be interesting to see, but of course, because Demi's played the Roxanne, Magnus is only working with 2 cards or 3 cards after he draws, and those are 2 of them. There, the quick ball away to try and maybe get another card out ready to go.
Yeah, he doesn't play Luminion, so he doesn't really have access to another supporter here. He's grabbing a Sobble. That increases the damage, but doesn't help with getting any further cards. Maybe with having like access to Drizzle to give you maybe another capacious package, more energies to then discard them with concealed cards would be a great way. But I think he's currently looking at 1 single card in his hand. Discarding, that was actually an energy.
That was the only energy that he had. So he was just getting another Pokemon out so that he can thin his deck ever so slightly, and then pulls himself into an Irida, which is fantastic for him. But I'm not too sure that's enough pieces to maybe try and go for that Echoing Horn play as an option. So maybe he's just trying to work that out as availability now. Of course, Demi also not playing Crobat or Luminion, so there's no easy targets. They have to be able to do 220 damage. So right now with Subspace Swell, we're still just doing the 200. So, I mean, it's not far off, but it's a little bit more.
Yes,
a little bit more needed.
So, of course, the Echoing Horn play is valid for both players. So Echoing Horn gets one of your opposing Pokemon in the discard pile on their bench, basically, so a basic Pokemon. Both players would have that option, and one potential way to win here for Magnus would be get an opposing Palika V on the bench, find a way to maybe gust it up and then KO it, because 220 is more realistic than 280, or 280 in this case. So that's one way for Magnus to come back, but he's actually grabbing a capacious bucket and more water energies, maybe further thinning out the deck. But I'm not quite sure, since we've already seen an Irida, I believe, what else we could see here.
Yeah, no, it might look like it's going to be really hard for Magnus right now. Demi, despite starting quite badly, looks like he's put himself in a really, really good position here, because he's able to take that first, deal the first damage onto the last Palkia VStars on both sides of the board. So really interesting to see. Also, just kind of really noticed, maybe it's only 180. With that bench Sobble now, it's going up to 220 because Demi actually has a choice belt as well. So it's actually a 30 next to the 180 there. Just to kind of get that clarified for everyone at home and making sure we're following the numbers at the same time. But, you know, Demi has his route to victory now. There's typically no way to heal in these decks.
Yep. Absolutely.
Even through anything like something crazy like a collapsed stadium, or maybe there's suddenly a hyper potion. These types of decks don't play that. So
there's also not really a second attacker that Magnus could set up here this late in the game. He doesn't really have anything available. We talked about Inteleon, but that won't help you here either. So he is indeed withdrawing, putting up the mana fee. Maybe this is another case where Magnus, yes, he's up 1 game, and if he gets a very lucky next turn, maybe surviving here, then getting that Echoing Horn play maybe next turn, that would allow him to win the game and play on. Well, we talked about the timer. Once again, we're down to 16 minutes here, almost 17 minutes, and Magnus could be like, well, I'd rather win in game 3, but you saw how long this game took, so it's quite a fair chance for Magnus to promote his mana fee, sacrifice one single prizer, and then hope that next turn he has all the puzzle pieces he needs.
Yeah, well, we can start to see from some of the body language there, Magnus had a little shake of his head, knowing that unfortunately this game seems to have kind of fallen out of the clutches of his hands right now. Demi is going for the concealed cards. We'll need to try and find a way to boss up. Does have the Evo Incense to maybe evolve back into the big shady dealings there as well. So whether just checking now he actually has access to the one boss in his deck or not is going to be vital, because he has prized that one cross switcher, remember.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see which pieces Demetris has to close out this game. We talked about the boss potential. We know, we see the prize. We know that cross switcher is not a play. He played 2 already and 1 is priced, so that's not an option. I'm looking for a discard pile, trying to spot the boss, but I can't quite see it, so it could very well be in the deck. If he has a way to actually access that boss in the deck, the game would be over right on. But it seems like he's attacking the mana fee and takes 1 prize, not the cross switcher, unfortunately. But yeah, again, like Magnus still needs quite a lot of puzzle pieces to close out this game.
Very true. So right now, still trying to find a way to deal maybe 220 with that Echoing Horn available somewhere in the deck, or maybe somewhere in his hand as well. Does now have a Drizzle on the bench and a Sobble, so that's potentially 3 trainer cards there to be able to pull himself back into the game and actually opportunity to win there.
And I think because he needs so many puzzle pieces, like having Inteleon and Drizzle would help you a lot, because you need 2 cross switchers, you need an Echoing Horn, and then you still need maybe a switching card for sure to, after cross switching, getting back your Palkia into the active position.
Yeah,
that's a lot of puzzle pieces, but having the Inteleon, that's 2 trainer cards. Having a Drizzle, that's a 3rd one. Maybe with what he has in his hand, maybe concealed cards could get him 2 more cards as well. So it is quite a lot to ask for, but that's why Magnus used that last turn to thin out his deck as much as possible, so that when he's hoping for these last puzzle pieces, he gets them. There's the Inteleon, and let's see what we're getting out of his deck. Maybe we can have a closer look at his hand cards right now to get a better idea of what is going through his mind, seeing what he has in his deck as well.
Yeah, it's interesting already that we've seen, again, a bit of body language from Demi's side. As soon as that Evo Incense hit the field, there's a little shake of the head from Demi. Just there, as we're just looking through the deck from Magnus, is eyeing up those cross switches.
There's the cross switches.
From the Inteleon Shady Dealing, grabbing 2 trainer cards that he so chooses from his deck. So just giving himself that opportunity there to just gust up the relevant, just 1 prizer that he needs remaining to win the game.
The Echoing Horn as well.
Yeah, he's gone for the Echoing Horn, and is that the training court?
Yeah,
he
choice.
does need an energy attached to that active, because he's only got 1 energy, having retreated the previous turn. The Echoing Horn there for, I assume, the Palkia V.
And I think the training core was important to get rid of the Path of Peak, to be actually use concealed cards to get more cards into play. So that's an option here. We see the training core, which also gives you access to 1 more energy from your from a discard pile to then use concealed cards. So the question is, how is he sequencing these last few puzzle pieces to go through it? He plays in Roxanne, which gives him access to 6 cards. His deck actually looks very thinned down already. So having 6 cards plus potentially concealed cards looks like a good chance to get the last 3 puzzle pieces.
Yeah, so he'll be looking to try and find a way to maybe get those cross switches to target up that Palkia V as soon as possible. If that is even possible after maybe a scoop up net, is drawing 6 fresh cards. Does have a scoop up net as the first card I think I've seen him draw. But does he have the opportunity to bring it up? There's the Zigzagoon ping onto... he's just, choosing to put it onto Palkia V there, just kind of making his life a little bit easier when he's trying to attack. It's getting really tense here now, because Magnus here, if he's able to find a way to gust it up in some way, shape or form, if he was able to hit 1 cross switcher and 1 Evo Incense, it just means he could get the Drizzle. There's the scoop up net, so he's able to get another Drizzle
into play.
Yeah.
Once again, like at this point, we see that Magnus actually has 1 Drizzle prize. So had he access to that, maybe he didn't need the scoop up net in this case here. So now he has 1 scoop up net. He has 1 cross switcher. I'm not quite sure what else he has in his hand, but yeah, he needs double cross switcher and a switching option to close out this game, or otherwise it looks like pretty much Demetris' case here. So let's see if he has all the pieces he needs. He's still thinking about it. He's going through his discard pile, looking at the energies, using training cord, attaching.
So it's not quite a given yet. It doesn't seem like quite a given. Maybe he's just looking for, with having already used Roxanne on Demetris with just 2 cards left in hand, maybe he's okay just leaving it in the active position and hoping Demi just, there you go, he just passes, hoping Demi doesn't draw out of a switching out, doesn't have access to his cross switches, so can't retreat. This could be a little bit worrying for Demi here. Does have access to training court from Magnus, so can start to think about attaching there to the active. He's just got to play to his outs. He is shaking his head. He's just got to play to his outs right now. It does look like he just passes. and it looks like writing might be on the wall here. So Demi, unfortunately, just not able to draw out of the...